Most people look at their yard and see a mess. But by the time this is over, you are going to look at that same yard and see a grocery store. And not just any grocery store. One that is completely free, grows itself, and has been feeding families for thousands of years. Stay with me, because before we are done today, I'm going to show you 8 plants that are probably already growing near your home right now. And I'm going to show you exactly how to tell the safe ones apart from the ones that could make you sick. That difference is everything, and you are going to know it cold. Here is something that most people never find out. The plants that grow without being invited, the ones we spray and pull and curse at, are often the most nutritious things on the entire property. Scientists have tested them. Farmers from ancient civilizations grew them on purpose. And somewhere along the way, we forgot all of that and started buying expensive supplements that contain the exact same nutrients these free plants are already giving away. By the time this video is done, you are going to have the knowledge that changes how you see every lawn, every sidewalk crack, and every forgotten corner of your garden forever. But before we get into the plants themselves, there is one thing we need to talk about first, because it is the thing that separates someone who forages safely from someone who ends up in trouble. There are rules to this. Simple rules. Rules a child can follow. And once you know them, you are going to feel completely confident stepping outside and finding your first free meal. Those rules are coming up in just a moment, and then we are going straight into the plants one by one. The first rule is the one that protects you more than any other, and it is this: location matters more than identification. Even if you know exactly what plant you are looking at, if it is growing on the side of a busy road, do not eat it. Cars and trucks release heavy metals and chemicals that fall into the soil and get absorbed directly into the plant. You cannot see those chemicals. You cannot smell them. You cannot wash them off. A perfectly healthy, completely edible plant growing 20 feet from a highway is not the same as that same plant growing in your backyard. The distance rule that experienced foragers follow is simple. Stay at least 50 feet away from any road with regular traffic. The further, the better. The second rule is about containers, and this one surprises people. If you are growing anything in old painted wood, old tires, or any container you found without knowing its full history, be careful. Older paints can contain lead. Certain plastics and treated woods release chemicals into the soil over time. The plant does not know the difference. It pulls up whatever is in that soil and stores it in its leaves and stems. Your safest containers are untreated wood, food-grade plastic, ceramic, or plain stone and concrete. This is not something to panic about. It is just something to know, and now you know it. The third rule is about a naturally occurring substance called oxalic acid. Some edible plants contain it, and in very large amounts it can cause problems for people, especially those with kidney issues. The plants we are going to talk about today that contain oxalates are completely safe in normal food quantities. The same way spinach contains oxalates and nobody worries about a spinach salad. But you are not going to sit down and eat a pound of raw wood sorrel every single day. Variety, moderation, and common sense are the real safety rules here, and you already practice those with everything else you eat. The fourth rule is the most important one of all, and it sounds almost too simple. When in doubt, do not eat it. You are going to learn 8 plants today. You're going to learn exactly what they look and feel and smell like. And I'm going to show you the dangerous plants that try to look like them. But if you ever find something and something feels off, if the leaf is a slightly different shape, if it smells strange, if the stem looks different from what I described, leave it alone. There are plenty of safe plants. You do not need to take chances with an uncertain one. Confidence comes from knowing what you are looking for, and by the end of this, you are going to have that confidence. Let's get into the plants. The first plant on our list is one that almost everyone has pulled out of their garden without realizing what they were throwing away. It is called Purslane, and it is one of the most nutritious plants on the planet. The leaves are small, thick, and fleshy, almost like tiny green pillows. They are smooth and shiny on top. The stems are reddish or pinkish, and they spread out along the ground in a way that looks almost like a star shape. The whole plant stays low to the ground. When you pick a leaf and bite it, it is slightly sour and has a refreshing crunch that is honestly pleasant. Ancient Egyptians ate it. It shows up in Mediterranean cooking to this day. And here is the part that makes nutritionists stop and pay attention. Purslane contains more omega-3 fatty acids than almost any other plant on Earth. The same healthy fats people buy fish oil supplements for. in your yard, for free. Now here is the plant that people sometimes confuse with purslane, and this is where paying attention is going to protect you. It is called spurge, and it can cause serious irritation if you eat it. The way to tell them apart is actually very easy once you know what to look for. Spurge has tiny leaves that are much thinner and flatter than purslane's thick, fleshy ones. But the real giveaway is this. If you break the stem of spurge, it releases a white, milky liquid almost immediately. That white sap is your warning sign. Purslane has no white sap at all. If you break a purslane stem, nothing comes out. No milk, no color, nothing. That one test, break the stem and look, will protect you every single time. Remember it. Thick, fleshy leaves, reddish stem, no white sap, that is purslane, and it is yours. The second plant is one that most people know by name but have never thought of as food. It is dandelion, and I am going to make you a promise right now. After today, you are never going to look at a dandelion as a weed again. The entire plant is edible, every single part of it. The leaves, the flowers, the roots, all of it. The leaves have more vitamin A than carrots, more vitamin C than tomatoes, more calcium than milk by weight. They have been used as medicine and as food across Europe, Asia, and the Americas for as long as anyone has been keeping records. And they grow everywhere. The leaf is long with jagged edges that point back toward the base of the plant, like teeth on a saw pointing backward. The stem is hollow and produces a tiny amount of white sap when broken, which is harmless. But taste is your real guide here because dandelion leaves are distinctly bitter in a clean, green way. The plant that gets confused with dandelion sometimes is called cat's ear, and here is the thing about that. Cat's ear is also edible. It is a close relative, but knowing the difference is still worth your time. Cat's ear leaves are hairy and fuzzy on the surface, while dandelion leaves are smooth. Cat's ear also has branching stems with multiple flowers on one stem, while dandelion always has a single flower on each hollow stem. Both are safe and both are nutritious, but dandelion is the one with the longer track record in kitchens around the world. The young leaves picked in early spring before the plant flowers are the mildest and most delicious. That is when experienced foragers go out and gather them by the bowlful. The third plant on our list grows in the cracks of sidewalks, in gravel driveways, along paths and walkways, and almost everywhere that gets foot traffic. It is called common plantain, and before you say anything, this is not the banana-shaped fruit from the grocery store. This is a completely different plant that just shares the same name. Common plantain has oval leaves with smooth edges and very distinct parallel veins running from the base of the leaf to the tip, like the veins are all going in the same direction. When you tear a leaf slowly, you will see thin, stringy fibers stretch across the tear, almost like tiny threads. Those threads are another identification feature. The plant is almost completely flat against the ground, and in the center it sends up tall, thin stalks with tiny seeds on them in late summer. Plantain has been used for centuries as a wound herb, pressed onto cuts and stings to reduce swelling, but it is also completely edible as food. Young leaves are mild enough to eat raw in salads. Older leaves get tougher and stringy and are better cooked briefly like spinach. The seeds on the tall stalks are edible too and can be ground into flour or sprinkled on food. There is no dangerous lookalike for common plantain that you need to worry about. It is one of the safest plants to learn because it is so distinctive. Those parallel veins and stretchy fibers make it almost impossible to confuse with anything harmful. The fourth plant is wood sorrel, and this one is genuinely delicious. The leaves are heart-shaped, 3 in a group like a clover, and the plant tends to grow in partial shade under trees and shrubs. The leaves fold up slightly at night or on cloudy days, which is one of its charming habits. When you eat a leaf of wood sorrel, you will immediately notice a bright, lemony, almost sour taste. That is the oxalic acid we talked about earlier, and in the amounts you would normally eat, it is completely harmless and actually quite enjoyable. Children who find this plant almost always love it immediately because that citrusy tang is surprising and pleasant. Now here is where careful identification matters. Wood sorrel is sometimes confused with regular clover, but real clover leaves are more oval-shaped and do not have that distinctive heart shape. The real thing to know is this. If the 3 leaves are heart-shaped and the plant tastes sour and lemony when you bite a leaf, it is wood sorrel. If the leaves are oval or rounded and there is no sour taste, it is clover, which is also edible, but a different plant entirely. Neither one will hurt you. but the sour taste is the most reliable way to confirm wood sorrel in the moment. It can be used in salads, blended into sauces, or used to make a lemonade-like drink by steeping the leaves in water. Wild chefs have been doing exactly that for generations. The fifth plant is one that might be growing in your lawn right now, and you have almost certainly dismissed it as just another grass. It is called sheep sorrel, and it is related to wood sorrel in its tartness but looks completely different. Sheep sorrel has narrow arrow-shaped leaves with two small lobes at the base that point backward, almost like tiny wings on either side of the stem. Those small backward-pointing lobes are the most distinctive thing about this plant, and once you see them, you will recognize this plant instantly every time. The flavor is sour and earthy, similar to wood sorrel but more intense, and it has been used in soups and sauces in French and Eastern European cooking for centuries. It contains vitamin C in good quantities and was historically used by sailors and explorers to prevent scurvy on long journeys. The leaves are best used in small amounts as a flavoring rather than eaten in large quantities as a salad green, both because of the stronger flavor and the oxalate content. A handful added to a soup or egg dish is the traditional way to use it. The sixth plant is one of the most versatile and underappreciated food plants in the entire world, and the fact that most people spray it with herbicide every spring is something future generations are going to find baffling. It is called chickweed, and it is a small, low-growing plant with tiny oval leaves and delicate white flowers that have 5 petals, each one so deeply divided that it looks like 10 petals at first glance. The stem has a single line of fine hairs running along one side, which is one of the most useful identification features this plant has. Run your finger along the stem and you will feel that single line of fuzz on one side while the rest of the stem is smooth. That feature is almost unique to chickweed and makes identification very reliable. Chickweed tastes mild and fresh, almost like corn silk, and it can be eaten raw in salads, added to sandwiches, or wilted briefly in a pan with butter and garlic the way you would cook spinach. It is high in vitamin C and B, in iron, calcium, and magnesium. It grows in cool weather, appearing in early spring and fall, and it is one of the first edible plants available after winter, which made it historically very important as a source of fresh nutrition when very little else was growing. There is a plant called scarlet pimpernel that can grow in similar areas and should not be eaten, and the way to tell them apart is straightforward. Scarlet pimpernel has orange or red flowers and completely smooth stems with no hairline at all. If you see that single line of hair on the stem and tiny white flowers, you have chickweed and you can harvest it with confidence. The seventh plant takes us into slightly shadier territory, not because it is dangerous, but because it is one that people have been told for years is a weed with no value at all, and the truth is almost the opposite. It is called lamb's quarters, and if you have ever seen it, you know this plant. It grows tall and bushy, sometimes reaching 5 or 6 feet by late summer. The leaves are shaped like a goosefoot, roughly triangular with slightly wavy or toothed edges. And here is the feature that makes this plant completely unmistakable. The young leaves at the top of the plant are covered in a silvery white powdery coating, almost like they have been dusted with chalk. Touch those young leaves and the powder comes off on your fingers. No other common weed has that feature, and it makes identification genuinely easy and reliable. Lamb's quarters is so nutritious that researchers have called it a superfood. The leaves contain iron, calcium, protein, vitamins A, C, and K in amounts that rival commercial spinach, and some studies have found the nutritional content to be significantly higher than standard supermarket greens. It can be eaten raw when young, cooked like spinach when mature, and the seeds, which appear in late summer in dense clusters, can be collected and used like quinoa, which is a closely related plant. Indigenous peoples across North America and farming communities across Europe and Asia grew this plant intentionally for thousands of years before modern agriculture decided it was just a weed and treated it accordingly. Now you know what it actually is, and the next time you see that white powder on triangular leaves, you are going to smile. The 8th and final plant on our list today is one of the most magical discoveries a new forager can make, because it is one that most people walk past every single day without ever knowing it is food. It is called hawthorne, and unlike the ground-level plants we have been discussing, this one is a tree or large shrub. Hawthorne grows along roadsides, at the edges of fields, in hedgerows, and sometimes as ornamental plantings in neighborhoods. It has deeply lobed leaves that look somewhat like small oak leaves, and in spring it is covered in clusters of white flowers. In autumn it produces small red berries, called haws. that hang in clusters and look something like tiny apples, which makes sense because hawthorn is in the same plant family as apples and roses. The berries are edible and have a mild, slightly mealy flavor that is pleasant on its own and excellent in jams, syrups, and jellies. The seeds inside the berries should not be eaten in large quantities. A seed or two is not a concern, but the seeds contain compounds that should be avoided in concentrated amounts, so the traditional preparation is to cook the berries and strain out the seeds to make jelly or syrup. The leaves and flowers are also used to make herbal teas that have been studied for their benefits to heart health. Hawthorn has deep roots in the folk medicine traditions of nearly every culture in the Northern Hemisphere. And modern research has actually confirmed many of the traditional uses. The tree is thorny. That is where the name comes from. So harvest with gloves and care. But the berries are worth the effort, and they are absolutely free every single autumn. Now here's the thing about everything we have covered today. These 8 plants are not exotic. They are not rare. They are not things you need to order from a specialty nursery or search for in a national forest. They are almost certainly within walking distance of your front door right now. Purslane and spurge are probably in your garden beds. Dandelion is in your lawn. Plantain is in the cracks of your path. Wood sorrel is under your trees. Chickweed appears every spring in the cool corners of your yard. Lamb's quarters sprouts up wherever the soil is disturbed. And hawthorn hedges line the edges of parks and fields in almost every region of the country. The grocery store has been outside your door this entire time. But knowing the plants is only half of the knowledge that is going to make you genuinely confident and safe. The other half is the rules we talked about at the beginning, and now that you have seen the plants, those rules are going to make even more sense. Stay away from roadsides and polluted areas. Know your containers. Eat these plants in normal food quantities the way you would any vegetable. And when something does not look right, trust that feeling and leave it alone. The people who struggle with foraging are almost always people who try to do it without a system. They go outside with a vague idea and try to match what they see to a memory. The people who forage well are the people who learn a small number of plants completely, who know the 1 or 2 lookalikes for each one and know exactly how to tell them apart, and who follow the same simple safety habits every time. That is what you have today. 8 plants, clear identification features, the key lookalikes for each one, and the 4 rules that keep every outing safe. That is a complete system, and it is yours right now. What you are going to do next is step outside with fresh eyes, not to immediately harvest everything in sight, but to practice seeing. Find the plants, confirm the features, notice where they are growing and whether the location is safe. Do that a few times with 1 or 2 plants before you harvest anything, and you will build the kind of calm, grounded confidence that no amount of reading can fully give you. The identification happens in your hands and your eyes, not just your head, and the only way to get there is to go look at the real thing. One more promise before we close. The knowledge in this video is just the beginning of what is growing outside your door. There are roots, seeds, flowers, and bark with stories and uses and nutritional profiles that most people will never discover, simply because nobody told them to look. Every season has its own plants coming into their best moment. Every region has its own specific varieties with their own histories. And every time you learn one more plant, really learn it the way you now know purslane from spurge, you add one more permanent piece of knowledge that nobody can take away from you.
That knowledge is yours for life. It weighs nothing. It costs nothing. And it connects you to every person who has ever lived close to the land and understood that the earth provides for those who know how to look. If you want a simple reference you can keep and use every time you go outside, we have put together a free Lazy Gardener's cheat sheet with the botanical names, the key identification features, and clear photos of each of these 8 plants side by side with their lookalikes. You can grab that from the link in the description below. It is the kind of thing you print out once and keep in a drawer, or take with you on a walk, and it will serve you every season for years. No cost, no catch. Just the reference sheet that makes everything in this video practical the moment you step outside. The yard is not a mess. It never was. It is a pantry that has been quietly waiting for you to figure out the combination. Now you have it.